with our the first one is the 2020 FILO accounts per the Department of Revenue. This is actually what we have. Going in, I have 24 FILO accounts based on 16, it's 24 charges, and they're from 16 manufacturers and public utilities. As you can see, Kisswire has 3 FILOs, and KRA has 2. And then we have TrueCast has a couple, and then West Fraser has a couple. Newberry Electric, this is the first year that we're being charged a public utility. If you look at the schedules on there, the SO1s are always going to be my FILOs, and the public utilities are going to be a Schedule T. And that's what Newberry Electric is. We also have a Schedule L, which is a warehouse. But they're just on with my manufacturers. Y'all haven't done those as fees yet. But I thought I'd throw that in. I have 3 different schedules I have to work with. All my manufacturers are A's. But these are my FILOs, and you'll see the schedules, the date they were open, the total investment that they were to give, the initial fee year, the final investment year, the agreement length, the required fee investment, the fixed millage rate. You noticed on there the fixed millage rate, some of them's a lot lower than the others. Got one on here for $2.84 and one for $2.36. I mean, some of them's kind of low. And then I have, you see on the third column from the end, it says fees. That's what was charged, the $10,876,937. But we had special source revenue credits. I put checks by those. So we ended up going to collect $4,119,685 due to special source revenue credits. And one of those credits is like MM Technics. It's exempt for 6 years. They won't start paying us till 2024. They haven't paid the county anything for 6 years exemption. That's the way it was set up.
Now, Donna, looking at some of these, like the 236 and the 284, which we said is a fixed millage rate, and they look mighty low. But if you reflect back to where the initial year was, it was still not mighty low compared to what that potential.
No. But that's, yeah. But I just put this on here so you could see.
I just didn't want anybody getting this and thinking there's favoritism done. That was based on the year that.
No, that's the year it was done. That's the way it works. It's usually done. Usually they'll set the FILO and say an 18 FILO, but I may not get a charge till 20. You know, it takes a couple years to come online. Now, Newberry Electric, it was opened in 2021, and see, it came on in 2022. Those are the 3. I got 3 for Newberry Electric. And the reason I got 3, it's 3 different tax districts. I got one outside, one in the city of Newberry, and then one's in 2. So I got them in different tax districts. So it's 3 different, shows 3 different charges. But these are what I'm dealing with. These are charges for this year. This is what went out this year.
Any questions from anybody?
And Debbie has a handout that she's going to give you on these, showing which one it will be rolling off in what year.
That's where I was getting at.
I got that from Department of Revenue. Michelle Michie with the Department of Revenue is wonderful. She always, I asked her and she went through the list and she's got marked the year that they're going to start rolling off. And if you noticed on the other sheet, Oscar Mayer, it's rolling off, because see, it's just a $4,000. But see, what happens, it rolled off the fee part and it goes on to my manufacturers. So they're still a big taxpayer, but they're paying as a manufacturer instead of a fee. We didn't lose the plan. So
It just switches over to the
yeah, it's just not in my
revenue to value it.
Yeah, it's not in my fees. It's in my manufacturers that I charge.
But now, some of these could come back on with a continuation if they do expansions, am I correct?
Yes, they could, and I think Rick's got that part. Where's
Yeah,
it?
for instance,
He's
we
got
had
that part.
a deal with Komatsu that would have expired, it was 2018 or so, but they came back, they did another $5 million investment, and they requested the council extend the original agreement from 20 years to 30 years. So, and council did do that.
So that's, see, so it can be, as long as I can keep up with what y'all doing, we'll be good. That's,
I saw that.
that's the main thing here, so
All
I
right.
can keep up with, yeah, but you can
Sometimes
see
in the
these
past-
and which ones are gonna be rolling off. And this is, and, she wrote that, on the, this is per the Department of Revenue. This is what she's telling you, it's what's gonna happen. And I gave y'all another little sheet that's actually the Gadsby 77 that I have to do every year. And it shows, the FILO tax is the $4,119,685, and also the multi-county part. We're in a part with Greenwood, and we pay them $3,953.13 out of that. I have to mark it so that they'll get their part. They get 1/10 of a cent. It used to be 1%, but now it's 1/10 of a percent. Kinda, but that's better.
That's- I like
We
Well,
used to
this,
pay,
this was one of those things that started originally back at 5%, am I correct? Wasn't that right?
1%'s all I've dealt with,
1%?
1%. And it was, Fairfield and Lexington County were the two counties that we dealt with mostly.
They getting plenty of money off all the docks that people in Newberry County own that are in their lake, trust me.
Yeah, so now we give them, and then they send to us. It's about a wash, because that's just about what they're sending us too, so it's not, see, they have to send us too, and theirs is not much more than that, so. But we're keeping it legal. And if you'll look at, this one that I gave you, I fixed it and let you know what it would have been at 10.5%. That's what the tax would have been,
Which one is that?
this one, with all the pretty yellow highlights on it. It says 2022 fee and lieu. It's the first page of the,
Yeah, I got it.
you see it? See, I put it, see, I had the value, and I did it at 6%, and then what the taxes are. But of course, these taxes are not exactly sometimes that value, because some of them do have that I have to take off the special source revenue credits. So, but this is actually what they pay, or will be paying. I don't think any of them's paid yet, but it's early yet. And then I changed them to 10.5%, put what it would have been at the current levy. And you can see what it would have been. And then the difference between the two are in this column. And then if you look at the next page, this is a report I have to do every year. If you look at the next page, you'll see I break it down by school bonds, school general fund, community service, county bonds, and county general fund. That's the part coming off the difference that these entities would have gotten. But that's just something that they want for that Gadsby 77 that I do. So I just thought I'd run y'all that too, let you look at it. Okay,
All right.
y'all got any questions about our current fees, or?
No, but I do want to ask one question. School
Okay.
bonds, that 52 mills that was put on, how many?
53.
53 mills that were put on, how many years ago?
Too many.
Is that ever to sunset?
Yes. I think it was like 2012, it's been a long time.
But is that ever to sunset, or do you know?
Yeah, we deal with, Theo DeVoe's every year, and that's what every year, they pay in for the schools.
Okay, because I mean,
53 mills.
we as council get a lot of heat for the taxes, but when
Oh,
you
yeah.
look at that little wheel that just came out, it's the schools that, and again, I know we gotta have good schools, not
Yeah.
arguing that at all.
That's why I put the pie on the tax bill.
Thank you, because
And you can tell, we started that, actually Bill Waldrop was the councilman that really wanted that pie on there. Years ago, he wanted that pie, so it would show So we have done it every year. And it
I think that's
shows.
brilliant to show people.
Yeah, we show, yeah, so I always have them put in, because my office is the one responsible for getting the tax bills
yeah.
together, so, yeah, I always want that on there. If there's anything else y'all know that you'd want on there, let me know, because we got that done after he wanted it. And
Thank
it
you.
does help, because you can see the portion that the school gets and the portion the county gets. But it's like you said, any problems, they come into the county, because this is, you know, they can see us, and we're the ones that they, I don't want to say complain, but they're the ones that come to talk it
But
over.
y'all have to get the blunt of it.
Yeah, yeah, to find out what, but, you know, the taxes didn't go up this year, so it's been relatively easy right
Yeah,
now.
but
We haven't
53
had-
mills is a big hit on anybody and everybody with, you know, so. Anyway, I just thought
I
that,
have been asked that question so many times, when will it sunset? Nobody seems to know.
nobody seems to have an answer.
Will it ever?
Nobody knows.
Don't know?
Thank you so much.
Okay, and
All
that's
right.
my part.
All right, Rick,
And
do you have
now-
more for us?
Mr. Rick's gonna tell
Okay.
us our future with them.
All right.
All right, one of the early tasks that Mr. Inglesi gave me was to project the revenues from fee and lieu of tax deals that have been passed by the council, but for which we have not received money yet. So me and Ms. Donna teleconference this morning, but I do want you to know and realize that these are just projections. So they are fallible. I'll give you two.
Thank you, Rick.
And, but these are the best numbers that I have at this point.
I hope you have one for me, Rick.
I do. So you see, in fiscal year 2022, we are collecting about $232,000 this year on a couple projects that were passed in the recent past. The big one, of course, is the KRA deal that was passed in 2019. Now, their first year, they got 100% special source revenue credit. That would have been 2021 technically, because we passed the deal in 2019. They finished the facility in 2020, so their first tax year was 2021. This is their second. But as you see, as we progress further, we'll get more and more revenue, culminating in about 5 years from now. We'll be well, actually, in just a couple of years from now, we'll be bringing in somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.3 million from these new fees. Now, the reason this is so hard to predict is that sometimes companies don't invest what they guaranteed. Now, usually that means they invested more than they guaranteed. KRA is a great example. They committed to an $11.5 million investment back in 2019. They actually invested about $19 million. So my projections would have been low on that end. As you see, fiscal year 2025, we should pop up to about $1.3 million in new revenues from these recent fees. And that's because $51 million project, which will actually end up being probably closer to a $60 million project. They will pay their first year of taxes. They have a deal that gives them 100% credit for the first 2 years. And so that will kick in the fiscal year 2025, and that's a big chunk of money there. Now, what is not on here are the deals that we haven't done yet. You know, for instance, Project Echo. We're expecting somewhere around $200,000 a year from Project Echo, but what if it doesn't happen? What if we pass it and it never gets built, which has happened with other projects. Another shortcoming of the projections is what happens if a company just bugs out. And Caterpillar had a 20-year FILO with Newberry County, and they left after 10 years. So that FILO just kind of evaporates. So, but anyway, we have some significant new revenue coming to Newberry County from recent fees in the very near future, and we hope to add to this as we go along. So.
Just for the record, though, Caterpillar had a FILO that was tracked out for several years.
Yes, sir.
When they actually exited the building, am I correct, we still continued to tax that at a business rate, not at a FILO rate, so which we probably came out a little ahead of the game versus
Sure.
FILO.
That's certainly possible, because if they leave the FILO deal, and then the FILO goes away, and then you just revert to ad valorem taxation for whatever property they leave behind. Now, in this case, they would have left behind an empty box. They would have taken all the machinery out of it, which is always a big chunk of what their tax burden is, and they would have left the empty box. And we would have gotten revenues off of that empty box, but it wouldn't have been charged at a manufacturing rate. Or at a commercial, probably a 6% rate, because it's no longer an active manufacturing facility.
Ms. Lomnick?
With Samsung, that first year, we called it a facility fee. And what we did was I made a dummy tax bill and charged them $1 million because that's what Caterpillar had paid us. And so that was the deal, that they had to pay the $1 million, and they paid it.
And they'll continue to pay that for the first 10 years of that project
That's
being
why
here.
it's $1 million.
And we're halfway through that now.
So they'll continue paying $1 million a year?
They pay them
Yes, sir.
every year.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And I believe when county council, when we brought the Samsung project to county council, our directive was protect the revenue that Caterpillar brings in, and then let's deal after that. And so this is the deal we ended up creating. We protected that revenue stream, which was significant. I think Caterpillar was paying about $750,000 a year in taxes
What the
before they
million
left.
is, that's what they had decided for that facility thing. And actually, that first year, they were not gonna pay it. And
Yes.
my tax analyst called me and informed me that they were saying they weren't in operation, and they weren't. But the deal was they were supposed to pay it. So I talked to our prior county administrator, and he called them, and they paid it. So it was in the deal that they were supposed to.
Now, Rick, am I understanding, we have or will only be collecting from 4 of these companies in 2022?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Those are on your paper. that I-
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, now my question is, we have talked about earmarking some of this money out of FILOs
Yes, sir.
for economic development, rolling stock. I think I heard recreation at one time. But, when would we be able to start tagging some of this? Would the only ones just coming on in 2023?
Sure.
Or is this only in new?
Well, you would have to do that on an individual basis, and what you would do is you would go back to the original deal, and you would alter the multi-county industrial park agreement to direct those revenues. Am I getting that right, Mr. Lacy?
We're working with legal counsel to make those amendments to the MCIP that would create a capital fund like has been discussed previously. There, we actually have had some back and forth. We're pretty close to bringing that to council. And what it does, the way I believe it's being drafted is that because we rely on $1 million in FILO revenues for our general operating budget now, it's incrementally implemented over a 5-year period. And so this new revenue will help with that implementation. Essentially, what we've discussed is taking 45% of the industrial park's revenue, all of the revenue from the industrial park, and creating a capital fund with those revenues, with the 55% going to the general fund. And those text amendments have been drafted. It's intended to be implemented over a 5-year period, which these new revenues will assist in making that transition. Does that make sense? And
Yes, it does, and it makes perfect sense, and I think 45% is a good number. But I will say this, if we pour too many things into the amount of monies that we're drawing out, it's not gonna serve anybody any purpose. And what I'm saying is, I just recently checked with some people in our county and outside of our county. A new fire truck is gonna cost between $350,000 and $380,000. If you look at, even on the high end of this, at $1,299,000, 45% of that won't even pay for two trucks. So if we're gonna water it down to where we,
It's not just these new revenues, so the
I
tax.
understand, but I'm just saying,
Okay.
using this as an example,
Gotcha.
you're not even looking at two fire trucks. One of the things we got to do is protect money, or at least my opinion is, we've got to protect money for economic development. Had we not had $1 million for Samsung, we never would have Samsung here today. And that's gonna be one thing that's gonna have to be a priority is economic development, at least from my perspective. That's got to be if we wanna have future economic development growth. And number two, for the protection of our citizens without having to burden them with taxes, rolling stock has gotta be something that's in there.
Gotta be.
Now, a dessert could be recreation. But y'all, that's not one of our primary responsibilities, providing our citizens with recreational facilities, et cetera. I think Union has Timpkin Recreational Complex. If some of these industries want to actually go in and build us a complex or sponsor a walking trail or something of that nature, that's one thing. But the things that we've got to implement, safety and security, fire trucks, rolling stock, ambulances, whatever, should be a priority. And again, if we water this thing down with too many things in there that it can be spent for, we might as well not do it.
I think it should be the fire rescue and the economic development.
Well, one of the reasons we talked about creating such an economic development fund is because so many of the things we do are just really big ticket items. You mentioned a $350,000 fire truck. That is expensive, but a mile of road is a lot more expensive. And that's something we might have to build, water and sewer lines, they're investing in a spec building or a pad-ready project. These are projects that are in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not in the millions. So we got to build that up because I don't want to have to come back to council constantly and say, we need to do this, and I need you to break open the piggy bank for me. So over time, maybe for the next developer, this will build up to where they could do some things with council's input and direction, of course, that historically we've had to come to council and ask for it out of reserves.
Well, how much was that road out there that,
What,
Mawson's Way area, what was that, like $5 million?
Mawson's Way is $2.8 million for roughly not even a half mile of road. We're building a road, the stub of a road in Mid-Carolina Commerce Park 2. That's a $1.5 million project. We're finishing up the road extension in Mid-Carolina Commerce Park. That's a $3.7 million project. So roads are very, very expensive. And they're absolutely necessary. You don't get development without roads, water, and sewer.
Well, and if you promise these current people what you're gonna do and then you don't make good on your deal, they're your biggest help for recruiting additional and future industry. And if we can't uphold our bargain just because, then, I think those are your tickets where you've got to put your money first, is economic development and
Safety,
emergency services.
Safety.
So,
With respect to the fee in lieu, there is something I believe we've discussed in committee meetings. We may have even have touched on it at other times, but, as of July 1st, the state legislature passed what the media call tax cuts. And that's all they focused on were the personal tax cuts. The income tax rate went from 7% to 6.5%. But there was another facet of that legislation that basically is reworking how manufacturers are taxed in the state of South Carolina. The reason we needed the fee in lieu in the first place back in the mid-90s is because without the fee in lieu of tax, South Carolina is actually one of the worst places in the country to do manufacturing. And it's because the assessment ratios for manufacturing taxation are baked into the state constitution, 10.5%. commercial stuff at 6%, residential stuff at 4%. It's an oversimplification, but that's basically how it works. So the state created a way to get around that with the fee in lieu of tax, which which really made South Carolina boom. We were doing some economic development before the mid-90s, but it really boomed after that, and it was because of the fee in lieu of tax legislation that made us competitive with other states. Well, this new legislation by the state, it's going to be great for small companies out there, small manufacturers, especially those guys who never were big enough to qualify for a fee in lieu of tax deal. Remember, the minimum threshold is $2.5 million. And so if you're just investing, $600,000 in some new equipment for your little manufacturing operation, you're not going to get a deal. But what this does is it effectively lowers the manufacturing assessment ratios down to 6% with the commercial property. And the state is going to basically make the counties whole. So if you lose $50,000 from a company because the state cut its taxes, the state is supposed to pay you that $50,000. Now, we don't quite exactly understand how this is going to affect deals on the local level, but we're learning about that. It was really strange at how this was passed. For instance, the State Economic Developers Association, we actually have paid lobbyists on staff. And these lobbyists are supposed to keep us abreast of what's going on in the legislature and what could pass that might change the way we do business. But when this happened, we found out right before it was actually passed in like June. Nobody expected this legislation to pass, but it did pass, and it is going to change how we do deals on the local level. One concern that I have as a local developer is one of the ways that council has sort of regulated industrial growth is through the fee in lieu of tax deal. If a company wants to make a significant investment and wants to come to Newberry County, well, they got to sit down at the table and negotiate with Newberry County to get this fee in lieu of tax deal. This might change the landscape where they don't need that fee in lieu of tax anymore. So we actually have a session at this at a meeting on Friday. I hope to learn more about that then. And when I know more, I'll let council know more. But this could be a boon for the small guys out there who've always gotten kind of the short end of the stick. But it could change the way deals are done in the future. And this actually plays into what we were discussing during the last meeting. You might have this big industrial area. For some reason, the original plans didn't pan out, but now you got this big industrial area. Well, the one thing in the past that's kept that, let's say a steel mill decided they want to invest $100 million and build a steel mill. It wouldn't do that without having a fee in lieu of tax deal. Well, in the future, they might not need that fee in lieu of tax deal. So there is a concern among local developers like myself that this takes some authority and control away from councils. So it's actually smart to be looking at things like, what would happen if a company had the property, had the zoning, and wanted to come here without a deal? If they don't need that fee in lieu of tax, it might just happen. So we have to be prepared for that.
The county still could, the state may say they're gonna fund that other portion of it, but we've seen in past years where the local government fund, they did not fund it.
Right.
And so we didn't know at some years how much money we were gonna get from them.
Absolutely, and there is a cap on this. Again, I said the state will make the counties whole. So if you lose out money because they effectively lowered the assessment ratio on this manufacturer, the state will make up that money. But there's a $170 million per year cap. And what if that is exceeded? What happens? Does the county start losing money then? Nobody quite knows.
Nobody knows, but I can just about
I've
figure it
even
out.
spoken on this subject with some of the best industrial tax attorneys in the state, and they just kind of shrug their shoulders and say, that remains to be seen. So it is a point of concern. I don't want to make too much of it. I think in the end, we're going to be fine, but these are considerations that we really have to take into effect because it is going to change the way deals are done on a local level.
Ms. Longneck, yes.
On that PPE money that he's talking about, we're gonna get back, we found out at our last meeting that no county will get their money back until every county has done their paperwork and turned it in. start doing it in October. But, all right, is every county gonna do their paperwork, get it turned in? We're gonna be held hostage till every county turns their money, turns the paperwork in. And see, I have to turn in paperwork for us to get that money back. I have to, there's things we have to do and send in. I might get mine in, but one of those other boys.
But we're held
might
by,
not. So we're not gonna get the money, the refunds, the rebates and all that until everybody does it.
There are still reasons that companies will want a fee in lieu of tax deal. For instance, there's a certain amount of predictability. You can lock your millage rates, so you don't have to worry about a future council, jacking rates or something like that. The special source revenue credits, you won't get those without a fee in lieu of tax deal. Grants, you're not gonna get a grant from a county without sitting down at the table and work. So there are still reasons why a significant project will want a fee in lieu of tax deal. But we're at a critical time here, and nobody's quite sure exactly how this will all play out, and so, but we'll learn it together.
All right, thank you so much, Rick. Next, we have bonds, Ms. Donna Lomanek and Ms. Debbie Croman.
Uh, 2022-23 GO bonds. These are the bonds and these are the payments for this year. These are our payments. Lease purchase, 2018C, 2020A, and 2020B. We did have 2013, the spec building, but it was paid out, so it's gone. So it's all gone, so we don't have that one anymore. And that's how I was able to, with that one gone, and last year on the lease purchase, I had to levy $990,000. This year it was only $660,000 because they paid down some of the lease purchase too. So that all helped. Christopher and Debbie worked on that and got that.
that saved us 2 meals.
Yeah, that saved. That's why the tax levy didn't have to go up, because it went from 7.7 to 5.1, so that helped, cutting that on these. But this is what we got. And this sheet is just my worksheet where from the treasurer, I find out how much money she collects every month on my bonds, so I will know. And, Buddy, you'd be interested in that last one that's in the yellow.
Mm-hmm,
See what that is?
mm-hmm.
And that's not even big tax season yet. When we get into that will be significant. Yeah,
What's she talking about?
it will be the yellow one, see? Yeah, that yellow GO, that's theirs. But, and over here, I put the principal and the interest amounts that have to be paid and when they have to be paid. The only one we had, see, the 213, we're still collecting on it, but you can tell it's very little, little over $200 every month. And that money will be moved into another one of my sinking funds. Sinking fund money has to stay within the sinking funds. It can't be put anywhere else. So that's why we were able to pay off the lease purchase in the 2013. We had some money that we could switch around and pay those off to help not to be too bad. Okay, that's what we got. You see what loans we got, and then Debbie's got,
All we added was the pages of the 2021 audit that gives you the bond payments as of that period of time, and it also gives the long-term debt, and the lease purchase is on page 37. That's just from the last year's, the 2021 audit. That tells you basically the amount of interest rate that we have and the payments that we estimate we have to do based on the amortization tables. And we're here for any questions.
All right,
and this could be a little less, because if I have money, I can switch around to help that.
That's why in the budget process, we use the amortization table and then say, hey, if Donna has any money on hand, that could be reduced.
Yeah, because
So at that time, I won't know exactly what we have.
And Mr. Livingston, I apologize for interrupting you.
No, you're fine. I mean, got 2 years, got more time to listen and talk. But, all right. When, do we have a schedule of showing when some of these bonds are coming off? Because I'm trying to sit here and read. One looks like April 2037.
Say the special source revenue bond is probably not a good one because it's paid with fee in lieu ofs. But the next one, the promissory note, it says 2028.
Okay, and then the next one that actually would go away would be 2025, so that's only 3 years out?
And I need to back up. The promissory note has been paid off. That's the Santee Cooper.
And then 2030, 2028,
Yes, sir.
2030, we have none that's gonna come off before then?
No, sir, not on those, but we probably have some lease purchases on.
Okay, that might be
next
where I was
page.
thinking.
Yeah, it
Is that
probably-
reflected anywhere?
It's on page 37 of that packet. And see, some of those have gone off because of December 2021 and the 21, so really, well, take that back, we'll get the wrong thing. The 2017 is probably gone. The 2018 will go off in 2023. The lease purchase for 2019 is 2024, and the lease purchase for 2020 is also in 2024.
So basically, in 2024, we'll have $180,000 savings, $150,000 savings, which is 331,000.
And the one that's not listed on there is the FY 21-22 lease purchase where we did a small amount of $481,000. And the interest payment is like $98,756. It's not listed on there.
All right, I guess my comment there is there's at least 300,000 that's gonna be coming back into the coffers that we won't have to be,
Debt service.
but it still has to be paid with tax millage, am I correct? Right, but I guess my whole thing is I don't want some vulture to be sitting there saying, okay, here's an opportunity to add $300,000 to the budget just to
No.
cover something.
That's debt service.
And then the other thing is that, when you talk about the ingenuity of these, especially in the times that we're in right now, you're basically using this money for free. You got 3.5% interest, 2% interest, 1.63% interest, 3.94% interest, 1.27, and 1.80.
Well,
And I think any entity would be happy to borrow money if they got to borrow money at that rate. So I think the previous direction from bond counsel, from county administrator to whomever, if you look at those percent interest rates, we're in one heck of a good shape for what we borrowed money for.
And every December, council approves that ordinance telling Donna how much to levy for. And like she said, it was $900,000 last year, and it's down to $690 this year. So that's, when we put it back out to get a cheaper interest rate, he does the principal amount. So, these are just amortization numbers.
Yeah, I think the days of getting the better interest rates probably.
Are gone.
Yeah. I don't think he's gonna do that right now.
I would like to.
That could be good.
Even over the 6-year period, $192,000 in interest for the lease purchase program. So even though it is low interest rates, it does add up when you're borrowing that much money, saying you're paying 5-year lease to purchase these vehicles.
Well, that's why the rolling stock money would be good.
Yes, absolutely.
But, there again, I say that a while ago, just to make sure that I think I've heard you say recreation. This is where our commitment is to our citizens is, and things it's gotta be. And to keep up with the ISO ratings, et cetera, these are things that we've got to provide the services for our people.
And to keep our volunteers
Yes.
even interested.
Yes.
And Crystal's not here, but the market for equipment is terrible. I mean, we could order today and it'd be 2 or 3 years
It's
out.
2 year wait for any large
Yeah.
equipment, I know that.
Okay,
The
any,
cost of those have just skyrocketed.
oh, yeah.
I don't know
And you
if,
can't get them.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if Mike, I think he's trying to look at his piece of equipment and it's just skyrocketed, the cost.
Oh, almost double what it was a couple years ago.
Yes, sir,
And wait time is doubled or tripled.
double. It's hard to believe there, isn't it?
I've been waiting on a bucket truck for 2 years.
Wow.
And there's no comments here for comments for administrators, but I'm gonna take the liberty to say, y'all, on the presentation tonight, Rick, where's Rick?
He's
going?
gone.
Donna, Debbie, Karen, thank y'all so much for being able to maintain and monitor and keep abreast of what we got going on, and what's going out at all given times. And
I'd just like to say it's a team effort. It's not just one, it's all of us. We come as a team.
but it's well over 100 years of experience, y'all old folks. Y'all-
He could have went all night
Yeah,
without
say that,
saying.
Just between these two.
And I enjoy working with our team.
Thank y'all.
Young ladies do an exceptional job.
Yes.
Anybody, we'll open the floor. I'll take chairman privilege and offer any comments before we have a vote to go. Anybody else want anything?
I appreciate all the hard work y'all have done and keep up the good work. You're doing exceptional.
Incredible information, and it looks like a good path forward. It really does.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to thank all of you, and I hate Rick had to leave, but,
Having said that, is the next on the agenda is the one y'all been looking for. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Shealy, second by Ms. Airwood. All in favor, raising your hand. We stand adjourned with a unanimous vote.
Rick said he had to go back to his office to do a presentation for tomorrow. Rick said he had to go back to his office.